Walk onto a Mercedes-Benz lot today. Go on, take a look around. The chrome gleams under the showroom lights, the smell of new leather hangs in the air, and that three-pointed star sits there, proud as ever. But something feels different. Something's a little off. It's a feeling that's hard to put your finger on. Maybe the car you've been dreaming of for years, the one you finally thought you could afford, is just gone. Or maybe the models that are there have price tags that look like someone accidentally typed an extra zero. You've probably heard the stories. You might tell yourself it's just the ghost of the pandemic, a chip shortage that never really ended, or those trade war rumblings you see on the news. You might think your local dealer is just having a bad month, or maybe you just have bad luck. But the truth is far more deliberate, far more calculated, and it has almost nothing to do with luck. The dream of owning a new Mercedes, that tangible milestone of success for millions, is slipping away. It's not in your head. And it's not because they can't make enough cars. It's because, in a way, they don't want to. Not for you, anyway. Not anymore. The reason is a brutal, calculated storm of corporate strategy, global economics, and high-stakes politics. By the end of this, you'll understand that the disappearing Mercedes isn't a symptom of a problem. It is the plan. If you've been wondering why it's suddenly so much harder to get your hands on a new Mercedes, the answer isn't what you think. Forget the easy explanations. This isn't just a supply chain hiccup. This is a story about a seismic shift happening behind the closed doors of one of the world's most iconic companies. It's a story of politics, power, and profit that starts in a boardroom in Stuttgart and ends right in your driveway. Or more accurately, with the empty space where you hoped your new car would be. We're going to connect the dots and reveal the real, uncomfortable truth behind why your dream car is being deliberately driven out of reach. Deconstructing the myths. To get to what's really going on, we first have to tear down the simple stories that have been dominating the conversation. There are three big myths that, while not totally false, hide the much larger, more intentional strategy at play. Myth number one, the empty showroom story. The story you hear is one of desolation. Dealerships that look like ghost towns, with no cars to sell. This paints a picture of a company in crisis, unable to keep up. But the data tells a very different and much more interesting story. Now, it's true that overall sales are down. Mercedes-Benz has seen a global sales drop, with a 9% decline in the second quarter of 2025 and a 12% dip right here in the US. But here's the twist. That drop isn't spread evenly. When you look at their top-end vehicles, we're talking the ultra-luxury. Maybach, the high-performance AMGs, and the legendary G-Class, the story changes. Sales in this top tier actually grew by 5% in that same period, and sales of high-performance AMG models alone jumped by 19%. So the showrooms aren't empty, they're just being curated. The cars that are disappearing are the ones at the more affordable end of the lineup. The models that once served as the gateway to the brand are being systematically pushed aside to make room for their far more expensive, far more profitable siblings. You're not seeing a desert. You're seeing a deliberate culling of the herd, leaving only the prize winners on display. Myth number two, the global trade war silver bullet. This is the political excuse, and it's an easy one to believe. The idea is that a nasty trade war between the US and Europe has slapped massive tariffs, taxes on German cars, making them crazy expensive. For years, we've heard threats of 25% or even 30% tariffs on European auto imports. It seems like a logical culprit. A 25% tariff would absolutely jack up the price of a C-Class by over $10,000, pushing it out of reach for a lot of people. But here's the critical fact that gets lost in the noise. As of today, those sweeping killer tariffs on European cars haven't actually happened. While the threat has been a powerful political bargaining chip, the doomsday scenario of a 25% tax has been dodged through negotiations. The current tariff on a German-built passenger car coming into the US is still a relatively modest 2.5%. That's not nothing, but it's definitely not the crippling blow that would make the entire brand unaffordable. The real story here is more subtle. As we'll see, it's the threat of tariffs, not the tariffs themselves, that has shaped Mercedes' entire game plan. The ghost of the tariff is more powerful than the tariff itself. Myth number 3, the lingering ghost of the chip shortage. For the last few years, the semiconductor chip shortage was the perfect villain for everything wrong with the car industry. It was real, and its effects were huge. It forced car makers to slow production and prioritize some models over others. So it's easy to believe we're still living in the long shadow of that crisis. And to be fair, global supply chains are still a mess. Mercedes itself has cited ongoing challenges with tariffs and logistics that are slowing down deliveries. However, the acute phase of the chip crisis is mostly over. Production has largely stabilized. To keep blaming the chip shortage for why entire model lines are vanishing is to completely miss the point. What the chip shortage really did was provide a painful but valuable lesson. It forced car companies to learn how to operate with less. They discovered that when they couldn't build every car they wanted, it was way more profitable to build fewer, more expensive cars for their wealthiest customers. They learned that cutting their cheapest models and pouring all their resources into the most expensive ones led to record profits, even with fewer sales. This wasn't just a band-aid, it was a light bulb moment. It was the proof of concept for a new business model, one that Mercedes has now embraced with total conviction. The chip shortage wasn't the problem. It was the catalyst for the plan. The real reason, the economics of desire. The real reason that Mercedes you want is disappearing has a name. It's an official corporate strategy announced to investors with zero apology. Mercedes-Benz calls it their economics of desire strategy. In plain English, it's a top-down plan to stop being a premium automaker and become a true, dedicated, pure-play luxury brand. It means they are choosing to sell fewer cars at much higher prices, and they're systematically leaving behind the customers who can't pay to play. This isn't just a hunch, it's their stated mission. The company's chairman, Ola Kalanius, put it bluntly, saying Mercedes wasn't turning its sales success into enough profit, so they were refocusing. The goal isn't to be the best-selling premium brand anymore. The new goal, as Kalanius said, is to build the world's most desirable cars. And let's be clear, desirable is corporate speak for exclusive and expensive. To do this, they've completely reorganized their lineup into 3 buckets: top-end luxury, core luxury, and entry luxury. More than 75% of all future investment is being poured into the 2 most expensive segments. In fact, they have a public target of increasing sales of their top-end cars by 60% by 2026. This is the blueprint. The most brutal and immediate result of this strategy is the great culling of their affordable models. The entry luxury group, which used to be the front door to the Mercedes brand for millions, is being gutted. The company announced it was slashing its compact models from 7 down to just 4. The A-Class sedan, the most affordable Mercedes you could buy in the US, is already gone. The stylish C-Class and E-Class coupes and convertibles, longtime favorites for people who wanted style without a flagship price, have been discontinued. Even the revolutionary CLS, the car that basically invented the 4-door coupe style, is dead. They aren't just disappearing, they're being replaced by a philosophy of upselling. For instance, the C-Class and E-Class coupes are being merged into one new model, the CLE. It's a beautiful car, but it's positioned and priced higher than the C-Class coupe it replaces, pushing the price of entry for a 2-door Mercedes even higher. This isn't about giving you more choice, it's about giving you less choice at a higher price. While the bottom of the lineup gets hollowed out, the top is being built into the stratosphere. The strategy calls for aggressively growing the high-margin sub-brands, AMG, Maybach, and the G-Class. They're even launching a new ultra-exclusive program called the Mythos Series, limited-run collector cars sold only to the brand's most elite clients. The message couldn't be clearer. The focus is shifting from the aspiring upper middle class to the global ultra-wealthy. So why now? It's a perfect storm. First, the switch to electric vehicles costs a staggering amount of money. To fund the future of EV platforms and new software, they need bigger profits, and the fastest way there is to sell more expensive cars. Second, the world is a volatile place. Economic uncertainty and political turmoil make a business based on high sales volume incredibly risky. By focusing on the super rich, who are largely shielded from economic downturns, Mercedes is building a more resilient, recession-proof business, aiming for a profit margin of around 14%. This isn't a passive reaction. It's an aggressive, strategic pivot. Mercedes-Benz looked at the future and made a choice. They would rather be the next Ferrari than the next Toyota. They are choosing profit margins over sales volume and exclusivity over accessibility. And for the average person who dreamed of one day owning a new Mercedes, the message from Stuttgart is becoming painfully clear. We're moving on, and we're not taking you with us. The ripple effects, how this strategy hits your wallet. A corporate strategy in a Stuttgart boardroom can feel pretty abstract, but the economics of desire isn't just theory. It has real-world consequences that are changing the math for anyone thinking about buying a Mercedes. The first thing you'll notice is the price of admission is climbing fast. For decades, Mercedes had a ladder of aspiration. You might start with a C-Class, move up to an E-Class, and maybe one day, the flagship S-Class. The entry-level models, like the now-dead A-Class sedan, were the crucial first rung. With those models gone, that first rung has been sawed off. The starting price to own a new Mercedes is way higher than it was just a few years ago, and it's only going up. This isn't just inflation. It's a redesign to filter out less wealthy buyers from the start. This also creates a weird situation in the used car market. As cool models like the C-Class and E-Class coupes get cut from the new lineup, the ones already on the road become collector's items in a way. Basic supply and demand means that finding a clean, 5-year-old Mercedes coupe for a bargain might get a lot harder. Over time, there will be fewer of these more attainable models in the certified pre-owned lot, replaced by more expensive, higher-end vehicles, changing the ownership game entirely. Then there's the cost of keeping it on the road. The new Mercedes strategy is tied to a tech arms race. The brand is positioning itself as a leader in everything from electrification to advanced software. These new models are engineering marvels, but complexity has a price. Servicing a high-performance AMG hybrid or an electric EQS with its giant hyperscreen is naturally more expensive than maintaining a simple C-Class. Parts for these lower-volume, high-tech cars are more specialized and costly, so even if you can stretch for the initial purchase, the long-term cost of maintenance is climbing, adding another invisible barrier for the average person. Finally, this changes the whole vibe at your local dealership. As the cars move up market, so does the sales focus. When you have fewer, normal cars to sell, the emphasis shifts from moving a lot of metal to building relationships with clients, shopping for a $150,000 G-Class or a $200,000 Maybach. The showroom floor might feel a little more intimidating for someone just looking at the bottom of the price list. Your dealer isn't just selling cars anymore. They're being retrained to sell a new, far more exclusive version of the Mercedes dream. The tariff ghost, the political economic amplifier. Now that we get the internal strategy, let's go back to the tariffs. While that 25% trade war tariff wasn't the direct cause, the politics behind it act as a powerful amplifier for this new corporate direction. To understand why, we need to look at a bizarre piece of 1960s trade policy known as the chicken tax. Way back in the 60s, a trade dispute over American chicken led to the U.S. slapping a 25% retaliatory tariff on a few things, including light commercial vehicles. Most of those old tariffs are long gone, but the 25% tax on imported vans and trucks is still here today. And this old tax is the single best clue for how seriously Mercedes takes tariff threats. For years, Mercedes wanted to sell its Sprinter and Mitras vans in the huge U.S. market, but building them in Germany and importing them meant getting slammed with that 25% chicken tax, making them too expensive. So they came up with an almost absurdly complicated workaround. They would fully build and test the vans in Germany, then literally tear them apart. They'd ship the pieces to a small factory in South Carolina, where American workers would put them all back together. Because the final assembly happened on U.S. soil, the vans were technically made in the USA, and the company legally dodged the 25% tax. The head of Mercedes-Benz vans at the time admitted it was a pain, but it was still cheaper than paying the tariff. This incredible story is the key. It proves without a doubt that Mercedes is willing to literally disassemble its own products to get around a major U.S. tariff. That fact hangs over every single decision they make. Now apply that logic to today. The threat of a future 25% tariff on all cars creates an insane amount of risk for a business built on selling high volumes of German-made, mid-priced cars. A 25% tax on a $45,000 C-Class would erase the profit and kill demand overnight. It's a bet they're no longer willing to make. But a 25% tariff on a $180,000 Maybach S-Class? That's a different story. First, the profit margins on a car like that are huge, giving them room to absorb the cost. Second, the person buying a $180,000 car is far less sensitive to price. An extra $45,000 is less of a deal breaker for them than an extra $11,000 is for a C-Class buyer. Seen this way, the economics of desire strategy isn't just about being fancy. It's a brilliant and ruthless way to manage risk. It's a strategic shield against political chaos. By cutting their lower margin, high-volume imported cars and focusing on the super profitable top end, they're protecting their business from the whims of trade disputes. It also explains why they build so many of their popular SUVs, like the GLE and GLS, at their massive plant in Alabama. Those are completely safe from import taxes. Politics didn't cause this shift, but it created the perfect storm for it, making a strategy of exclusivity not just desirable, but a matter of corporate survival. The real reason your dream Mercedes is driving out of view isn't a simple story. It's not because the showrooms are empty, and it's not because of one single tariff. The truth is more complex and, for a lifelong fan of the brand, kind of a letdown. The reason is a calculated corporate strategy. It is the result of a conscious decision by Mercedes-Benz to abandon its post as an accessible premium brand and climb into the thin air of pure, uncompromising luxury. This economics of desire is a deliberate plan to build fewer, more expensive cars for a smaller, wealthier group of people. It's a strategy designed to maximize profit, fund the massive shift to an electric future, and build a fortress-like brand that can withstand almost any economic or political storm. The chip shortage, the threat of a trade war, the pressures of inflation, they weren't the cause. They were the catalysts. They were the proof in the accelerator for a plan that was already in motion, proving the profitability of scarcity and the security of catering to the 1%. The car that once symbolized making it is now being redefined to symbolize already having it all. The Mercedes-Benz that so many of us grew up with, the attainable icon, the first taste of real automotive excellence, the car you promised yourself you'd own one day, is being systematically retired. It's being replaced by a new Mercedes-Benz, one that is unapologetically exclusive, technologically complex, and financially out of reach for the very people who built its legacy. The reason you can't buy a Mercedes anymore isn't because of a problem with the world. It's because, to Mercedes, you might no longer be the right customer. This is a massive shift, and we're only just starting to see the effects. What do you think this means for other luxury brands? Are we going to see the whole middle of the premium market disappear, leaving a giant gap between a Toyota and a Lamborghini? I really want to know what you're seeing out there. Have you noticed this at your local dealership? Have the prices and the models available shocked you? Share your experiences and your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you want more deep dives that unpack the hidden economic and strategic forces reshaping the car world, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell. The story's always more complicated than the headlines, and we're here to connect the dots. Thanks for watching.